current serving men in the military. I have spoken with one federal agent, and the information succinctly boiled down is this. There is an event coming, Steve, in the very near-term future that is going to affect the United States of America to its very soul. That what is being planned, as you and I are on the air tonight, and what has been coming together into that old term, the perfect storm, is literally brewing right over our heads. And it comes down into two or three parts, but it's basically and succinctly, again, this. There is an effort being made right now to bring together the armed forces of this nation in preparation for responding to and acting against the interests, as I see them, of our citizens. It is and includes military maneuvers in the United States, military actions that are forthcoming, and that will be so deep and so penetrating that the United States will never be the same, in my view. This has been confirmed by a colonel, an active colonel in the United States Air Force, a sheriff known to me very personally, among others, state troopers that I know in 3 neighboring states in the Midwest, 3 chiefs of police who are personal long-term friends of mine, and others and a federal agent who I've known for over 20 years. What is going to happen, Steve, is that as the economic situation in this country dovetails right into the ditch, and the country responds by pouring billions and trillions after the billions and trillions that have already been committed. The FDIC is crumbling. The Federal Reserve is facing either saturating the economy with more money and letting inflation do what it's going to do, hyperinflation, and so forth, that when this does become reality in the near-term future, near-term, and I'm speaking probably within the next 45 to 60 days, we will see a response that has been programmed and projected by computers of where the most vociferous and the most heated response will be from Americans who simply said, we can't take any more of this. We've lost all we can lose. I'm going to defend what I have left. And the armed forces are being prompted to respond to this, not just simply in pacification, not going out there and being visible, not rolling their convoys through communities and states, but actually taking action against those areas targeted, that are already targeted and were set up for targeting by the 2009 census, so-called census, which was nothing more than acquiring targets for targeting computers, so that individuals, even communities, but certainly areas where the government fears the greatest response from the people when the collapse of what is left of our great republic occurs. And the armed forces, Steve, have been faced with a tremendous challenge, an almost unthinkable mission to plan for, and that is fighting against American citizens. Now, there are many out there who might be inclined to say, well, yeah, that's hypothetical, but do you really think it's going to happen? I've even had a couple of folks who I really think a lot of, and still do, but they just genuinely disagree because they said once that begins, that the casualties will be so enormous, and even within the law enforcement and military community, because the response will be heavy from the American citizens as well, that this is a formula for unmitigated disaster. And I've said, yes, I do believe it's possible. Yes, I do believe it's coming. And yes, the government, its last-ditch position, regardless of what happens in Copenhagen, regardless of what happens at the United Nations, regardless of what happens in the bowels of that whorehouse in Washington called the Capitol, regardless of what happens anywhere there, Steve, it boils down to this. The American people have reached saturation. It's been long and it's been difficult. You, at the top of the list, Steve, and others, of course, have been diligent, have been absolutely prophetic, and have been absolutely correct in your continuing many multi-year assessment of what's been going on. And I can't give you enough credit, if that's the right word, but certainly perseverance and courage for doing what you needed to do, even in the face of personal danger. I am so grateful that you've done that, and to others as well. But what it comes down to now is, and I'm going to take just a break here, but it comes down to the American people you're hearing the last clarion call, the last opportunity, the last expose, if you will. Maybe not in terms of all of this, but we're confining this tonight to what is out there on the planning boards for this nation. And it's coming as a result of the failure of government to protect its borders, the failure of government to protect the American people from gangsters and corrupt politicians that have literally raped this nation from the inside out and the outside in. There's nothing left of this nation, folks, that even resembles what my father fought for in World War II. It has nothing to do with the nation that Steve and I have grown up through in the 1950s and 60s, and that many of you have seen. Our republic is gone, and it's gone as the result of the actions of people who have conspired to take it from us. And because we're sitting in a socialist/communist nation that would rather be politically correct when it comes to any issue, you name it, they would rather do that than face the truth. They would rather do that than be honest with the American public. They would rather do that than serve the nation's interests and get this country back on its feet. They would rather sell it out. They would rather take everything they can and then turn the armed forces of this nation on itself and turn the law enforcement community inside out. Turn it towards the people instead of protecting the people. Steve, this is an outrage that has been unmatched throughout human history, except for a few times where a nation with the splendor that God blessed us with has seen it disappear, evaporate before our eyes, because the Holy Spirit of God has said, all right, if this is what you want, you can have it. You can have abortion by the millions. You can have pornography until you just can't get enough of it. You can go ahead and take the Islamic extremist into this country and try and excuse their theology for something akin to Christianity. And they're doing it on a daily basis. And as a result of that, you have the armed forces and the law enforcement network of this nation poised, being readied every single moment to react when that flashpoint occurs, wherever it is. I can tell you, Steve, 24 states have said that they will gather with me and others in a last-ditch effort to set up a leadership council that can say, wait just a minute, if this goes this way, what are we going to do? How are we going to react? What is our position going to be? How can we possibly bring this around so that people who have been doing everything possible to protect their families and to protect their homes and to protect themselves have some glimmer of hope that when that moment comes, and I pray to God that these men and women in uniform, whether it's military or in the law enforcement community, will stop. They'll stop dead in their tracks, and they will say, no, I cannot do this. I cannot do this against my own people who have been downtrodden by a corrupted, tyrannical government that has no more interest at heart, the American interest at heart, than fly to the moon without a rocket. And because of that, I'm simply saying to you, Steve, we are at the absolute precipice right now. My colonel said to me, we have plans that if it gets bad enough, we will simply commence yard farming. Now, that's a buzz phrase, I guess, in the military. I was not particularly familiar with it. I've heard other things close to that. But meaning, in other words, if we have to, in the worst-case scenario, we will call in targeted airstrikes to neighborhoods, communities, in areas in virtually across some states, that they will call in with Air Force assets to take out whomever they are told to take out.